The Romans built aqueducts, sewers, public baths, and hospitals for their soldiers. They understood that clean water mattered. They wrote medical textbooks that were still being copied 1,500 years later. They were also, by our standards, doing 5 things every single day that would get an ambulance called. And here is what makes this interesting. These were not the habits of the poor and desperate. These were the habits of comfortable people. The wealthier you were in Rome, the more exposed you often were. Let's go through them. Start with the sauce. Garum was the ketchup of the Roman world. It went on almost everything. Meat, vegetables, eggs, even mixed into wine. Rome imported it by the shipload, and the best brands were luxury goods with the maker's name stamped on the jar. We have those jars. In Pompeii, one workshop belonged to a man named Umbricius Scaurus, and his name is still readable on the containers. Here is how it was made. You took fish, often the guts and the small fish nobody wanted, packed them in layers with a great deal of salt, and left them in open vats in the sun for weeks, sometimes months. The fish broke down into liquid, you strained it, and that liquid was garum. Now the honest part? The salt was doing real work. High salt concentration is genuinely preservative, which is why garum was not a mass poisoning event. Roman producers were not idiots, but no food inspector on earth would sign off on it. Open air fermentation of fish viscera in a Mediterranean summer, next to a city with no refrigeration. Residue analysis of Pompeian containers has identified the fish species used and confirmed the process. The smell was so notorious that Roman writers joked about it, and production was often pushed to the edges of towns. They ate it on everything, daily. The second habit is the one that actually did damage, and it is not the one people usually name. Everyone has heard that Rome had lead pipes. True, they were called fistulae, and plumbers were literally named after lead, plumbum. But running water moves fast, and Roman water was hard, so mineral scale coated the inside of the pipes. Most historians now think the pipes were the smaller problem. The bigger problem was in the kitchen. Romans made a sweetener called defrutum, or sapa, by boiling down grape must into a thick syrup, and they preferred to boil it in lead vessels because lead does not give the metallic taste that copper does, and because the lead reacts with the acid to produce lead acetate, which is genuinely sweet. Sugar of lead. That syrup went into wine to sweeten it and stop it souring. It went into preserved fruit. It went into sauces. A wealthy Roman drinking sweetened wine every evening was consuming a lead compound on purpose for flavor. We can measure the result. Lead shows up in Roman skeletal remains at levels far above pre-Roman populations, and it shows up in ice cores and lake sediments as atmospheric pollution from Roman smelting. A pollution signal that would not be matched again until the Industrial Revolution. Even at the time, someone noticed. The architect Vitruvius wrote that workers in lead had unhealthy color and argued water should be carried in clay pipes instead. He was ignored. The third habit is the famous one, and it deserves its reputation. Roman public latrines were communal in a way modern people find hard to picture. A long stone bench with a row of holes, no partitions, 20 people at once, conversation included. Under the bench, running water carried waste away. For cleaning, there was the tersorium, a sponge fixed to the end of a stick. In front of the bench ran a shallow channel of water, and that is where the sponge was rinsed between users. Shared, rinsed, reused. And here is the fact that makes this section worth the whole video. Rome's sanitation did not reduce its parasites. You would expect that toilets, sewers, public baths, and clean water laws would cut intestinal parasites dramatically compared to the Iron Age societies that came before. Archaeological studies of Roman-era latrine deposits and coprolites across the empire found the opposite. Whipworm and roundworm were as common as before, in some places more common. Fish tapeworm actually appears to have spread, and the leading suspect is garum, shipped everywhere, made from uncooked fish. The plumbing was magnificent. The hygiene was not, which leads directly to the baths. The thermi were the center of Roman social life. You went daily, you met people, you did business, you exercised. Culturally, this is one of the best things Rome ever built. Medically, consider the conditions. Large warm pools, heavy daily use, and water that was often topped up rather than fully replaced. Oils and dead skin were scraped off the body with a curved tool called a strigil into the same environment. Now add this. Roman medical writers recommended bathing for the sick. Celsus advised baths in the treatment of wounds and various illnesses. So the people most likely to be carrying something were being medically encouraged to get into the shared warm water with everyone else. Warm water, organic matter, continuous crowds, and open wounds. If you designed a system to move skin and gut infections through a population, it would look a lot like this. And now the one people do not believe until you show them the source. Epilepsy in Rome was called the sacred disease, and one of the recommended treatments was to drink the blood of a freshly killed gladiator. This is not a rumor. Pliny the Elder describes epileptics drinking blood from the wounds of gladiators as if it were a living cup, and he is not endorsing it. He is disgusted and reports it as something people did. Celsus, writing a serious medical text, also records the practice. Later authors describe consuming the liver as well. The logic, as far as we can reconstruct it, was that a young strong man dying violently released vital force that could be transferred. When gladiatorial games ended, the practice reportedly shifted to the blood of the executed. A Roman doctor could set a fracture competently, perform cataract surgery, and clean a wound with vinegar. The same medical culture prescribed this. That is the real lesson about Roman medicine. It was not stupid. It was excellent and appalling at the same time, with no reliable way to tell which was which. So fermented fish liquid on everything, a lead compound used as a sweetener, a shared sponge, communal water treating the sick and the healthy together, and human blood prescribed as medicine. None of this was ignorance in the way we like to imagine. Rome had doctors, engineers, public health laws, and people who wrote things down carefully enough that we can still check them 2,000 years later. Vitruvius warned about lead. Pliny recorded the blood and called it what it was. They had the information. What they did not have was a way to test it. That is the only real difference between them and us. Not intelligence, not care. Just the ability to find out whether the thing you have always done is quietly hurting you. Which raises the obvious question about our own daily habits. And no, we do not know the answer yet either.